What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. This is Planet Soccer Pod. I'm Reed. That's Dylan. Today, we're going to start diving into the Champions League group stages, looking at them from the most analytical view you and I, Dylan, possibly can. We're going to do A and B in this episode. I don't know if we did them last year, but I know we did World Cup groups and we went one by one, and that was a lot. So we're going to shorten these up for you guys and try to just hit the points home nice and fast. Dylan, let's go ahead and jump into Group A. Who's in Group A? What do you see? What do we think is going to happen?
We got Bayern, who is, I believe, second or third favorite to win the whole
depending
shebang.
on where you look.
Yeah, to win the whole shebang, obviously behind Manchester City. We have Manchester City's rival, Manchester United, drew this group as well, as Copenhagen as the pot 3 team and Galatasaray as the pot 4 team, who had a very, very fun and interesting summer. A lot of times, if you are not super familiar with the whole European landscape, you might think, why the heck is, Wilfried Zaha going to Turkey? Newsflash, Galatasaray is a powerhouse. They tend to do really well signing guys in their early 30s who were superstars in the Prem or La Liga or what have you, and kind of giving them one last run with a heavy focus on Europe. So not necessarily one of your traditional powerhouses that a lot of people think about, but definitely a team to keep an eye on, especially after the summer that they have had.
Yep. So with these 4 teams, I think 2 stand out as kind of the surface level favorites. You got Bayern Munich, like we talked about in our last episode, signing Harry Kane. Harry Kane going to Old Trafford and potentially, backing a brace or something against ManU would be funny. Thomas Tuchel has proven himself in the Champions League, so I think he's the right coach for Bayern Munich in this group and in the tournament as a whole. And then you got Copenhagen and Galatasaray, and I don't think Galatasaray is your typical pot 4 team. We don't see a whole lot of typical pot 4 teams in this tournament. I think they're actually probably better than Copenhagen, but Copenhagen, a team that's made the Champions League fairly frequently here recently, more experience this year than last. It's going to be, both of these away teams. We'll talk more maybe about Galatasaray if you want to, Dylan, but both Copenhagen and Galatasaray are going to be tough places to go play. I could easily see ManU dropping at least points, if not all 3 versus one of these 2 teams, especially considering how bad they are away from home really throughout the Ten Hag era. So I think Bayern Munich easily, and I'm very tempted to pick Galatasaray to come in second in this group. Dylan, do you want to talk about any of the more analysis in this, or do you want to get straight to your picks?
I won't get straight to my picks, but I'm pretty sure you'll be able to gather where I'm going with this. I think ManU is an absolute dumpster fire is a little strong. They did look solid at points. We're recording this. I don't know when we're going to release it, but it is Sunday, the 3rd of September. So they just, on the backs of losing a late one to Arsenal, they did look fairly decent at parts of that game that I did catch. Obviously heartbreaking fashion to lose, but I think overall they've looked really, really poor this season in comparison to what you normally expect from United and in comparison to the money that was spent this summer. They spent 120 million Great British pounds on Hojlund, who played a year in Serie A, had one legitimate year in Serie A.
Yeah.
And Mason Mount, who was a flop at Chelsea, looking like a flop again for all intensive purposes. And on top of that, you throw 50 million on a goalkeeper. You would expect a lot better things from United, especially how they finished last year. So strong under Ten Hag. I think it was a team neither of us like hyping up, but we're hyping up a lot of last year, especially after the new manager appointment. But they've just looked so poor this year.
I think I picked them to finish second in the Premier League.
Yeah, and they've looked tough in a couple of the matches,
sitting like
so far.
12th, 11th or 12th, I think. Right,
and then you accompany that with Galatasaray does have a bit of history, winning Champions Leagues in the past, and as you touched on, being incredibly difficult place to go play. The ultras probably take up half of that stadium. Like it's a whole nother world in the Turkish league. So I don't know if ManU can really expect to go take 3 points on the road. I think you're very spot on. I think that it is highly likely that they drop some sort of points there, with a strong likelihood of dropping all three. I did mention, Wilfred Zaha going to Galatasaray. They got Icardi. Who else did they get this summer? Ziyech and a couple other guys.
Angelino. They already had, I think, Mertens. So it's a good squad. I mean,
very, very like I said, a little bit slightly past their prime, or just starting that career downturn. But certainly still very, very high quality players with lots of experience. It's not a pushover pot four like we'll see in some of these groups. It's a pot four to be respected, no doubt.
Yep. It's something that Galatasaray is a place that United has history at in the Champions League. I think they ended up winning the game, but there was the whole welcome to hell with Roy Keane in 1993. I actually didn't know this story before I went and Googled it. Y'all should go look it up. It's kind of interesting. I do think United ended up winning that game, but that was the 90s Man United, and this is not the 90s Man United.
Far from it.
It is worth noting a little, just interesting caveat in this group is Copenhagen is Hojlund's boyhood club. So he will be playing against them, and I don't know if he'll play. I think he's just coming back from injury, so Ten Hag is obviously integrating him somewhat slowly, but I don't know when those two clubs face off. Our games start here in about 2 weeks, 17 days or so. So I wouldn't say this group is wide open, but the door is certainly not locked for the pot 3 and 4 teams to get through. So that's kind of what I see in this one. Galatasaray is, last year's Turkish champions. They're sitting third right now. I think they've only played 3 games, and then Copenhagen won the Denmark League last year. They start sooner than most, and they're topping it again this year. So it's a team that knows how to win and have winning in their DNA, albeit not at the European level, but certainly a team that'll come in more confident, probably more so than last year.
Yeah. Let's jump into, if you don't have anything else, let's jump into picks. Where do you stand? Give me your just give me your 1 through 4 in order, and then I can do the same and we can chat about it.
Bayern, Galatasaray, ManU, and Copenhagen.
Yeah, as do I.
Same.
When we did our instant react, and we had one word, I think mine was upset or Cinderella or something to that effect. And it was alluding to as pretty obvious by now. I do expect, well, not maybe expect. I am predicting that Galatasaray do advance over United. United's just been so poor, and I do think they drop points on the road there. So that'll put Galatasaray in a pretty solid spot if they're able to steal a draw from Bayern or something like that at home. They'll be in a really good spot if they're able to nick 3 off of United at home.
Yep. Let us know what you guys think about Group A. We are going to move on to Group B shortly. Make sure to hit the subscribe button, the like button. I haven't seen a whole lot of group previews yet, so I think we might be some of the first ones out there. So if you guys have made it to this point in the video, drop us a like and a subscribe. We would really appreciate it. Group B is Sevilla, Arsenal, PSV Eindhoven, and Lens. You've got Sevilla out of La Liga, Arsenal, obviously the Premier League, PSV out of the Eredivisie, and Lens, who nearly came up with a Liga championship last season. I think they finished second to PSG. So this group, I think my word for it was Europa, because you have Sevilla coming in as the Europa League champions. I wouldn't be surprised to see them finish third in this group and go to the Europa League again and maybe make a run. Looking at it, I think it is Arsenal's group to lose. Arsenal not looking fantastic at times in the Premier League this year, but they are by far the most talented team in this group, I would say. And they're back in the UCL for the first time in 6 years. So, Dylan, Group B, what do you think?
Honestly, I don't even know how. I'm probably weighing too heavily on 4-5 league games. I don't even know if it's really going to be overly competitive. Sevilla's been awful, to put it nicely, and Lens has been worse than that even. They have 1 point in 4 games, -6 goal differential. They've looked horrendous. So
Yeah.
I don't see any world that Lens finishes above fourth. And I think there is a very, very real world that Sevilla, like you kind of alluded to, goes down to Europa again and wins Europa again, because that's just
Even
kind
though
of
they're
what they
sitting
do.
dead last in La Liga right now, they will
It's
find
like
a way
that.
to
That's like the
win the Europa
perfect.
League.
That's like what Sevilla's been known for the last 10, 15 years. And on the flip side, I know Arsenal hasn't looked great all season yet, but they're getting the job done most weeks. They've looked really solid today. A pretty gutty performance. Another late minute or late stoppage time winner for them. And then Eindhoven has looked fantastic. Obviously, there's a very exciting American storyline for us there. 3 Americans. Malik Tillman just had his first goal at PSV today. I believe maybe it was yesterday. I don't know. This weekend he had his first goal at PSV.
Yeah.
So that's a team I know I'm going to be looking to tune into every opportunity. It might be whenever PSV's playing, it's on one screen, and I got Golasso on the other, just to make sure I'm hitting all that PSV game. I'm ecstatic to have 3 Americans on one Champions League team together. So I'm very, very excited for PSV, and I think they have a really good shot to advance out of this group for sure.
Yeah, I think from an off the field perspective, as I've become more and more into soccer, I've kind of taken a really cultural aspect to it. And PSV is one of the most historic teams in all of world football, whether it's from the formation of tactics to the modification of tactics to actual players that have come through their system. I have a soft spot for PSV just from knowing their significance in the world of football. So I'm excited to see them back in the Champions League and playing really good football right now. And then on top of that, to see the Americans there is fantastic. Lynn, I think the S is silent. I'm not 100% sure, but
I don't watch Liga.
they
I
do.
don't know.
Yeah, they do sit in the relegation zone in Liga right now. Not looking very good. I don't know anything about them.
I don't either. That's literally, I put
So
in not familiar with Lens in my notes. Not familiar with Lens, but currently in relegation in League 1 point in 4 games. That's the extent of my knowledge. I know they had a good season last year, but I'm not gonna do a disservice to our viewers and listeners and try and spew stuff about Lens that I found on Google an hour before this episode.
Yeah.
Because I flat out I don't know. I don't watch like any Liga. It's not on a lot of TV packages or streaming packages in the US. So yeah, I'm pretty unfamiliar with Lens, other than it looks like they are struggling mightily this year. So not holding my breath on them to advance out of this and pull some surprise.
Yeah, I think one thing that is worth noting is Sevilla. They are last in La Liga, but it's not. I mean, they have good players. It's not a bad team. I don't think they're going to be walked over by anybody. They know how to play European football, whether it is the Champions League or the Europa League. And it's going to be a tough place to play. I mean, Spain's crazy about football, about soccer. So, not that Arsenal isn't used to going to places like that, or PSV isn't used to. However, Sevilla won't be similar to Frankfurt last year. I think, who was the Europa League winner coming into the tournament. I don't think Sevilla will be a walkover. Frankfurt actually ended up advancing to the knockout round. So. I don't know. This group feels like Arsenal's to lose, and in second place, I will be interested to see, Dylan, who you think will finish second.
Yeah, I got Arsenal clear runaway favorite here. Anything other than a group win, honestly, I know all that really matters when you're Arsenal and you haven't been here in a couple of years is advancing. But I think anything other than a comfortable group win would be extremely disappointing. I think the only real excuse to drop any points would maybe be PSV on the road. You might only squeeze out a draw, but Arsenal should run away with this group. I do have PSV in second. It's probably a lot of my biasness to the Americans, and they've been fun to follow. But I have them in second, Sevilla in third, and Lens, partially by default because I know so little about them, but I have Lens finishing last.
Yeah, I have Arsenal winning the group. I'll take Sevilla, just to be different, I guess, and because I really do think it is a coin flip with those two teams. It'll be interesting to see if PSV is even able to play their style against Sevilla. So I'll take Sevilla second, PSV third, and Lens fourth in this group. Yeah. So sorry for the lack of analysis on Lens, but that's what we got.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. You'll probably get the same on any other French sides moving through outside of PSG. We can give you a little bit more on, but yeah, is there anything huge that sticks out between Arsenal and Bayern? Who would you favor? I know it's not how it works like a knockout like that, but would you give Bayern is Bayern far and away the best of these two clubs as far as chance to advance, or where do you kind of sit overall on these two groups?
I think so. I think Bayern with the experience and with everything that Bayern is, I would probably give them the edge over Arsenal. I think I like Arteta as a coach fine enough. I have to give him his props. I don't necessarily know how he's going to approach the savviness and the figure that Thomas Tuchel is when it comes to the Champions League. I think he could be outcoached there by a pretty wide margin, and then the talent differential is minimal to none between the two squads. So probably Bayern the edge just because it's Bayern, and they've added Harry Kane. It's him and Alphonso Davies. I've watched a little bit of Bayern this year, and him and Alphonso Davies just look unbelievable together. Fonzie basically just runs down the wing and then gets it to Kane, and it's just an automatic finish. But yeah, two groups that don't overly excite me. Two groups that have pretty clear 1, 2, 3, and 4. Although, as we picked, there are definitely rooms for that second pot team, and I guess in the case of Group B, the first pot team to not make it through. So it happens every year. Wouldn't be surprising. However, these two groups on the surface, they look relatively easy to predict the winners. Second place, a little bit more of a toss-up.
So real quick before we wrap up, right now Arsenal are sitting in fourth as far as odds to win the Champions League go, regardless of if you think that is fair, accurate, the right spot for them to be. Is there anything you kind of watch the game a little bit more analytically than I do, or tactically than I do? Is there anything in January, assuming qualification, assuming group win, is there anything that they could do in January? Any needs they could realistically fill that you think would bump them any higher in their percentage to win, or your confidence in their ability to win? I know a lot of Americans, so a lot of our listening audience are Arsenal fans. So, and you're a Spurs guy, so I thought you'd be a pretty good person to talk on this. If there's anything that comes to your mind, real quick, not to put you on the spot, but
I think one thing they really need, and I've said this multiple times, is that like goal scorer right in front of goal. They rely a lot on the system to build up, and Tottenham does too now. I think Sonny's a natural goal scorer up top, where Charleston hasn't been. I like Jesus and what he brings to the attacking third of the pitch. I don't like what he brings in front of goal. He had I don't even really know if he touched the ball on was it Saka had a chance in the game today against ManU that was created by somebody out on the wing. I think Jesus might have back heel flicked it to him, but that's kind of what he brings. And Kai Havertz, they have him playing on the midfield left, which hasn't really worked so far. I think Fabio Vieira's looked far better in that situation than him. Martinelli hasn't been himself yet as far as scoring goals. So I think they need a guy who can come in and if they need a goal to end up beating Bayern or somebody else, somebody that can come in and really just make it happen on his own without having to rely on the system if they're facing a really, really solid defensive team. So
the Bayern,
goal scoring number 9, probably. Yeah.
Yep. No, yeah, I'd agree. And I think that would be most people's kind of thought. Because they frankly don't have it. Jesus is too injury prone. Nketiah, I don't know if he's really up to snuff to be a
Champions League level.
Champions League fourth most favored team kind of striker. Like, he's real solid, good enough to get you top 4 in the Prem, but probably not good enough to get you top 4 in the Champions League. So I completely agree. I don't know who that could be. I haven't started diving into possible transfers. We literally are 2 days removed from the window, summer window closing, so I haven't jumped in to see who might be available. So no names.
Ivan Toney will be a hot topic in January. for
that would
multiple
be
teams.
that would be a very interesting
Yeah.
fit. That's a good shout. Any final thoughts or anything before we wrap it up though?
I don't think so. Nope. Like I said, these games start, I think, September 19th and 20th.
Maybe
17th.
Yeah. I don't know. Whatever that Tuesday is.
Yeah, somewhere. Group C and D are next. We hope you guys enjoy. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, share, all of that. And we'll talk to you all next time.